to the November 9th public hearings. We have a number of public hearings tonight. I am going to read a little, well, actually it's a couple of pages long now. That'll cover all of the public hearings tonight. These public hearings are being held pursuant to Section 465 of the Local Government Act. All members of the public will be given a reasonable time to be heard or to present written submissions respecting matters contained in the bylaws that are the subjects of these hearings. All information, correspondence, petitions, or reports that have been received by noon today concerning the subject bylaws have been circulated to Council and are available to the public as part of the meeting package. For each public hearing, staff will provide their report, which will be followed by an opportunity for the applicant to speak where applicable. Members of the public who have pre-registered to speak have been added to the speakers list and will be called in the order that requests were received. And I have these here. Anyone who is not pre-registered may call into the conference line during the live meeting by dialing 1-877-385-4099 and entering participant access code 7382948. There will be an opportunity for public comment according to the speakers list, followed by comment from those in the gallery or on the phone. Speakers will be asked to state their name and civic address. Please note that all representations, whether written, in person, or electronic, are available to the public for viewing as part of the public record. Remarks will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker and should include all of the relevant information in their presentation. Further opportunity will be afforded all members of the public to speak a second or third time with new information only, once all persons have had an opportunity to speak. Council may ask questions of staff and public, but once a public hearing is over, no new information can be received. Council debate on the bylaw will take place during the regular council meeting following the conclusion of the public hearing. At that time, any questions of staff will be for clarification purposes only. The corporate officer will now provide information on the notice of the public hearings.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for everybody's information, so notice of these public hearings was provided by posting in the Summerland Review of October 29th and November 5th, and by sending out and otherwise delivering notices to owners and occupiers of each of the items that are on the agenda today for each public hearing.
Thank you. So we'll begin with 2107 Tate Street, Official Community Plan Bylaw number 2020-019 and Zoning Bylaw number 2020-020. And Alex is going to be presenting them. Thank you, Alex.
Thank you. All right. Good evening, Council. So the district has received an application to amend the future land use designation on a portion of the property at 2107 Tate Street from tourist commercial to high density residential, and to rezone from highway commercial to high density residential. Both requests are in association with the proposed subdivision of the property. The subdivision application proposes to split the site into Lot A and Lot B. While Lot A is intended to remain in the highway commercial zone, with the existing building continuing to operate as a motel, Lot B is proposed to be rezoned as residential high density to allow the other two existing buildings on the site to be converted to rental apartments. A development variance permit has also been submitted in union with this proposal. The applicant seeks to vary requirements for bicycle parking and setbacks. Although no major alterations to the existing buildings will be taking place, it should be noted that there are some minor building code modifications that will be necessary in order to comply with the 2018 BC Building Code. The subject property has been operating as a motel for almost 50 years. The owners are seeking to downsize due to the recent instability in the local tourism market and historical trends impacting their business operations. The existing motel is conveniently split into 3 separate buildings, making it easy to repurpose half of the existing motel into rental apartment units. Few upgrades will be required to the existing buildings as a result of the repurposing. In the OCP, the future land use designation of the subject property is tourist commercial, and it is zoned CH, commercial highway. The surrounding pattern of development is comprised of agricultural lands and single detached housing. Although there are currently no high-density residential units in the neighborhood, medium-density development does exist. Objectives within the South Okanagan Regional Growth Strategy support the proposed conversion. Objective 3A communicates that development should be specified in areas with publicly operated services and infrastructure. Supporting policy 3A2 of this objective suggests that development should be directed to primary growth areas. The proposed development site is just adjacent to Summerland urban growth area. Objective 4A encourages community diversity to enhance the overall well-being by supporting a range of accessible and affordable housing types. District objectives within the official community plan also support the proposed development concept. Objective 7.4.3.1 speaks to the district's need to accommodate a range of different housing options in order to meet market demands, echoing direction provided in the regional growth strategy. Objective 7.4.3.2 addresses the district's goal to reduce lot sizes and increase density in order to accommodate affordable housing options. The proposed conversion meets both of these key objectives. Further, Objective 7.4.3.4 states that the district should ensure residential developments are located where they can be efficiently serviced and linked to existing infrastructure without the taxpayer needing to contribute to initial capital improvements or excessive operating costs. Although this is usually geared at focusing development in downtown or lower town, it just so happens that the existing motel is fully serviced and will require few upgrades to the existing buildings. The proposal satisfies this objective in that existing infrastructure can be retained and repurposed to help meet a community need for housing. In 2017, an affordable housing framework project was conducted for the District of Summerland, identifying key deficiencies in Summerland's existing housing stock. The report found that housing is overwhelmingly single detached homes. Much of the existing multi-unit housing stock is targeted at seniors, and there is a significant lack of registered rental property in Summerland. The proposed conversion of motel units to long-term rental accommodation would provide a much-needed supply of more affordable housing in Summerland and is considered to be a positive step in addressing these issues of housing diversity. I want to take this chance to clarify one aspect of this application. It was previously communicated to Council and to the public that the minimum parking requirement for proposed Lot A, the portion to remain as a motel, was not met. However, after clarification from the applicant regarding the number of rooms, the parking requirement was in fact determined to be met. Lot A, remaining as a motel, is required to have 1 stall per sleeping unit. The motel has 29 sleeping units, and as such, 29 stalls are required. 30 stalls are provided. Lot B, proposed as rental apartments, is required to have 1 stall per studio unit, 1.25 stalls per 1-bedroom unit, and 1 visitor stall per 7 dwelling units. The apartment will have 22 studio units requiring 22 stalls, 5 1-bedroom units requiring 6 stalls, and 4 visitor parking stalls required. The applicant will also be meeting the requirement for EV charging spaces. And I'll just show the map here, just wanted to clarify, staff have ensured that these parking requirements are met by counting out, as shown on the map here. Access to the property will be as follows. Entrance to the existing motel will occur only along Tate Street. When exiting, motel users will use the existing exit midway down Willow Avenue as shown. The apartment entrance will be at the end of Willow Avenue through the existing single lane access. Entering and exiting the apartment building will be controlled with a gate and a fob/key system. Travel between both parcels in the existing parking lot will be blocked with a landscape buffer. Should the application be successful, variances will be required in order to facilitate the eventual subdivision. Although no new buildings are being constructed, some of the existing buildings on Lot B do not conform to the proposed new zoning designation. Variance will be required to section 6.6.3 due to the proximity of certain parking spaces to property lines. On Lot B, one parking space on either side encroaches on the 1.6 meter setback from interior side property lines. Variances will also be required to section 10.9.6 A, I, and B to ensure the existing buildings are brought into conformance with the new setback requirements of the RHD zone. Further, the applicant will also be requesting variance to table 6.3 to reduce the required number of Class A bicycle parking stalls. Staff are supportive of the application to amend the future land use and rezone the property. The proposal is supported by objectives in the official community plan and the regional growth strategy, seeking to improve housing diversity in serviced areas and the retention of existing infrastructure. Further, the proposal addresses key issues identified in the 2017 Affordable Housing Framework Project by diversifying housing options in Trout Creek and providing a more tangled option for local residents. Should council support the application to rezone the subject property to RHD and to change the future land use designation map to high density residential, a submitted subdivision application will be processed. Thank you very much, council.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so there is the opportunity for people to speak, beginning with the applicant. So, John and Karen Lathy. Again, please state your name and your civic address.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilors. My name is John Lathy, and I live 500.
Could you just wait a minute? I'm not sure that your mic is being broadcast as well as it should be.
Okay, thank you.
That's okay. Thank you.
Okay, part two. Good evening, Madam Mayor and Councilors. My name is John Lathy, and I live at 5008 Nixon Road, Trout Creek, Summerland. My wife and I have been residents, constituents, and stakeholders in this town for some 17 years. We own and operate the Summerland Hotel. I'm sure I have no need to tell you that we are living through unprecedented times, which are affecting many people's livelihoods and general well-being. We are no exception, and I'm sure you understand that being in the hospitality sector, we are fearful for the future of our livelihood. Hospitality and tourism was the first sector to be hit by the economic crisis that this COVID pandemic has brought, and it will likely be the last to recover if it ever does. In view of the changed circumstances of our industry, it is only responsible to try and make a plan and take actions that will hopefully get us through to better times. My family, we have 3 married children and 2 grandchildren, have had long discussions about how best to navigate our way through these difficult times. As things stand, we could simply hope for the best and borrow money for as long as our lenders will lend to make up for lost business. While this will keep the lights on in empty buildings for a time, at the end of the day, if recovery in hospitality does not happen, and the latest British Columbia Hotel Association survey is putting average occupancy of 30%, which is very low. Like many other operators, we would be overwhelmed with debt and slide gently into bankruptcy, leaving a boarded up motel at the southern entrance to the town of Summerland. Or You could do what some motels have done in Penticton and in other places, and rent our rooms out long-term to whoever shows up at the door, with our fingers crossed that they will be the type of guests we won't regret having, and provide enough cash flow for us to make a living in the process. However, in doing this, there are bound to be some unpalatable social problems arising for both ourselves and our neighbours. Neither of these options require any rezoning or any other status changes, and neither is particularly appealing. We have therefore chosen to think totally outside the box and come up with something different that not only addresses the changed circumstances we face in hospitality, but also provides benefits to the community of Summerland. The plan we have come up with would reduce the number of rooms in the motel to its original capacity, which we think will be more in line with the tourism needs of the future, and repurpose the 2 newer buildings on site into much needed, self-contained, unfurnished, long-term, adult-only residential rental units suitable for individuals or couples of all ages. This option requires going through the process of subdividing the lot and rezoning the southern portion of the lot as residential. It also requires a substantial investment to refurbish the buildings and add kitchenettes to all rooms. I'm happy to say that our lenders, the credit union, are on board with this plan and will provide the financing needed, so it should be viewed as a community-sponsored project. They clearly think that what we are planning to do is something that the community needs and support our efforts to provide this innovative new form of long-term housing. We have always been good citizens in this town, both corporately and as individuals. We have put in a great deal of infrastructure, part of which was the construction of trunk sewer link under the highway, which was built through our property to Willow Avenue. An easement over our property was given to the District of Summerland, which enabled the residents of West Trout Creek to connect to the main sewer system with a consequent uplift to their property values. Our additional cost to provide the sewer main through our property to the benefit of the entire neighbourhood was approximately $100,000. Once again, in these very trying circumstances, we are acting as responsible citizens in pursuing a plan that, although involving substantial costs to ourselves, will be of benefit to the community as a whole, while protecting our business and having no impact on the surrounding neighbourhood. The buildings are built. They are where they are, and we cannot move them. All we can do is make the best use of them, rezoning them for residential use in what is a residential area should, in my view, not be contentious. So what will these apartments look like? So if I could get slide 1 and 2, please. All studios will have a built-in kitchenette and a Murphy wall bed to make the best use of space. All units have their own private balconies and patios. There will be a common and secure laundry room on site for residents' use only. And all units and common areas are fire protected by means of a comprehensive sprinkler system. 3 and 4. These existing buildings are self-contained and will be screened off from the original motel with landscaping that will provide a visual barrier between the buildings and give them each their own separate exterior space. The apartments will be secure. Cameras will be installed on all landings, and there will be no access to the parking lot from the highway. Vehicle access from Willow Avenue will be restricted by a gate that will provide secure parking for residents and controlled and operated by a resident's key card. Both lots A and B will comply with the on-site parking requirements as required by the District of Summerland bylaws. At the present time, there are no restrictions regarding street parking in the area. And over the years, motel patrons have rarely taken advantage of these lack of restrictions. In fact, most of the perceived parking problems on the street are a result of street parking by neighboring residents and their guests, who, like many families in Trout Creek, have multiple vehicles. We only have 3 neighbors on Willow Avenue, but some of them have businesses that require both cars and trucks, and at times the number of vehicles between them and their guests run into double figures. During the high season, when we were at capacity, it would not be unusual to have upwards of 150 people on site, which generates a high number of vehicle movements as holidaymakers drive in and out. If our rezoning is granted and more permanent residents are living in our buildings, the fewer numbers and more permanent nature of residents who would usually drive out to work and in the morning and back in the evening, combined with a much reduced number of people visiting a smaller motel, should substantially reduce vehicle movements in the area. And like all existing residents of Trout Creek, these new residents will need a vehicle to access services and shopping facilities in either Summerland or further afield. As is usual in all tenanted buildings, potential residents will need to provide references, sign a lease, and provide a damage deposit. In the years I've lived in Trout Creek, there have been many changes. The fruit trees that were once growing in the Woodbridge pear orchard have been removed, and the site has been built on. William Street, which had a fine stand of trees at the south end, has also been developed. The apple orchard by Powell Beach has been built on, with lots so small and houses so big it looks as if their roofs are touching in places. A tract of land on Wall Street that used to have vegetables grown on it is now all building lots. The Summerland campground now has townhouses being built on it. Properties on Woods Avenue and Stoner Street have been subdivided and subdivided again, and coach houses are being built by the score for rent, which, like Airbnb, is totally unregulated. And a new motel is also slated for Johnson Street behind the gas station. The list goes on, and changes will continue to occur that will dramatically change the physical landscape. What we are proposing does not. None of us like changes, especially when they are brought about by external events over which we have no control. But adapt to them we must, and this is our best shot at survival. In view of the fact that we will be bringing 27 much-needed new rental units to the community of Summerland, I hope you will support this rezoning application and thank you for your time and attention.
Yes, you can ask the applicant questions. Did you, Karen, are you speaking as well? Okay, so go ahead, Councillor Holmes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I have a few questions, if you don't mind. I'm just wondering what your plans are for the two properties. Would you manage both the hotel and the apartments? Would you sell one or either one of them? Or how would you
As things stand, we would stay in situ, but I mean, who knows, we're getting old.
Could I ask you just to repeat your answer? I'm sorry, I can't hear it with the fan on up here.
Yeah, as things stand, we would carry on as normal, but we're getting old like everybody else, so who knows what the future's going to bring.
Thank you.
carry on as normal? If there's a change, it's not normal anymore. So,
Well,
so you have two
we would
properties.
run the motel and manage the apartments.
Another one, if I may.
Yes, of course.
So you currently rent by the month this time of year, a little bit, is that correct? So your target market would be for long-term rentals, they'd be different, you'd have different clientele. Is that your intention?
Yes.
And will you be renting the apartments furnished or unfurnished? Unfurnished. And one further question, if I may. Just why was the plan to have them predominantly studios and why not more variety? Say maybe more than one or two bedroom units?
Because that's how the building is built. And if you start knocking it about, you actually break the envelope with fire prevention. So.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Trainer.
Hi, John. You mentioned that this was going to be an adult-only building, is that correct? I'm just wondering why you chose it to be that way, as opposed to allowing families.
Because the units are small and they're just not conducive to bringing up a family.
So could a single parent and one child move in?
I wouldn't have a problem with it, but I'm just saying that if you have kids, we have grandchildren, you need some space for them.
Okay. So would that be a restriction then, the adult only, like would that be a policy or?
It would be a policy, but really you have to play it by ear. It really depends on what happens. All what I can say to you is over the years, we have had numerous inquiries from senior people who are moving into the area or come here for work or whatever. Not that many from families.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Barkle.
Could you tell me what you expect one of these suites would rent for, and how does that compare to what they're rented for now?
Sorry.
Oh, could you tell me what you hope to put these units on the market at? Monthly rent?
Rental pricing?
Yeah.
I think the going rate at the moment is around $950 for a studio, $12.50 for one bed.
Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Leahy while he's standing at the podium? Okay, thank you.
Thanks so much.
So next on the list is Karen Gallagher. I'm not sure if she's appearing in person. Is she in the room this evening? On the phone? No? Okay. And Randy Gallagher is next. Same thing? Is Randy Gallagher here tonight? No? Okay. So Deborah Monahan is on the phone.
Deborah, are you there?
Please go ahead, Deborah. State your name and your civic address, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll ask, is Deborah Monahan on the phone?
Right.
She's there for sure. Something wrong.
Yeah,
Deborah, oh, you're there. Here you go.
okay, I'm just gonna unplug my YouTube video here, so hang on. Okay. Okay, so, my name is Deborah Moynihan, and I live at 6228 Miltimore Avenue in Trout Creek, 2 streets behind the Summerland Hotel. As a resident of Trout Creek, I have many concerns that parallel those of the Advisory Planning Commission. And basically on municipality's website, the guide to developing in Summerland states the following. Municipal council use zoning as a method of directing growth and development within the community. The purpose of zoning is to maintain order, efficiency, and harmony in the use of land in the community, to establish and promote minimum standards for convenience and welfare of the public, to prevent overcrowding of land, to secure adequate light, air, and access, and to protect property values. The official community plan states it is to provide the following: a direction aligned with current community values and development patterns. It also states that higher density development should be along major transportation routes and restricted areas close to the downtown core and lower towns. These locations offer day-to-day commercial needs, community facilities, and parks necessary to support high-density development. Based on the information listed on the district website, as well as in the OCP, I fail to understand how rezoning can be justified. Trout Creek, in and of itself, is a very unique community. It is a community within a community, consisting of single-family homes, beaches, parks, a public school, walking paths, and not to mention a tourist destination with Bottleneck Drive. In 2006, Mr. Leahy wrote a letter to then Mayor David Gregory, and I quote, "We have therefore developed a scheme that we think is the most suited and will be of most benefit to the community in which we live. It is also the most expensive. As we are situated at the southernmost entry point to the town, we want a unique building of quality that would reflect the town in the best possible light to arriving tourists, rather than the cookie cutter type building that litter most towns, so tourists cannot tell which town they are in as they all look the same. This is in keeping with the spirit of the town, whose Tudor look center tries to maintain some uniqueness, end of quote. This is exactly what they achieved. The addition is certainly an attractive complement to the motel and attracts tourists to our end of town. However, now, and readily admitted, they say they can't retire because of the decline in booking. Now they want to change the uniqueness of the community in which they reside to better their own financial situation, not even considering the community at large. If you take away almost 30 rooms, where will the tourists spend the money? Not in Summerland, but in Penticton or even further south to Oliver and Soils. How is reducing tourist accommodation good for Summerland? The Advisory Planning Commission stated it also had concerns with the impact the motel rezoning will have on tourist accommodation. City staff advised there has not been a thorough analysis conducted to determine tourist accommodation needs. The Lacey's want to remove close to 30 rooms of tourist accommodation in a town that is a significant tourist destination. And the sole reason they built the addition in the first place. My question to council is, since when does one person's lack of retirement planning constitute the upheaval of a whole community? On July 24th this year, the OCP listed 3 places in Summerland as tourist commercial, of which Summerland Motel was one. Every high-density sector on the OCP is within the main core of Summerland, with the exception of the Summerland Waterfront Resort. But it was designed and built for the purpose that it is used for today. The Advisory Planning Commission raised the following concerns that parallel the concerned citizens of the neighborhood in and around the hotel on both sides of the highway. The following comments are taken directly from the municipal website once again. The configuration of studio units may not be conducive to the needs of most renters. The commission would like to see more diverse unit options in the form of 1 and 2 bedroom units, family units. The general consensus by the Advisory Planning Commission that more rental housing needed in this location is not necessarily ideal, as it is located far from services. This statement by the Advisory Planning Commission reiterates what was already written as part of the official community plan. There are no support services in Trout Creek. There was only a gas station with limited products and a liquor store. The applicant's response to the ACP concerns of the location, once again posted on the municipal website, was, and I quote, "The location is the location. A substantial number of people live in Trout Creek and they get by. Most Summerlanders shop in Penticton anyway. I have rarely seen anyone walk to the supermarket." To me, that is not a very community-minded nor supportive response, and an attitude the mayor and council should seriously consider. On September 28th this year, Alex Cox, the planning technician, wrote an order to Anthony Haddad, Chief Administrative Officer, with the following staff recommendation. That official community plan bylaw amendment bylaw 2020-2 or 019 located at 2107 Tate Street to change the future land use designated on the southern portion of the property from tourist commercial to high density residential be introduced and read a first and second time at that public hearing, and that a public hearing be held on October 26th to receive public feedback on official community plan bylaw amendments. Referring back to the guide to developing in Summerland, it also lists the application processing time and clearly states that between weeks 8 and 12 in the process, application be considered by council and a bylaw dismissed or staff authorized to create a bylaw, and B, public hearing is held after a notice period and bylaw is either abandoned or received second and third reading. According to Mr. Cox's own words, he recommended the bylaw be introduced and be read a first and second time, which according to the website, they were read a first and second time on the 28th, and this was well in advance of the original public hearing date of October 26th. So the second reading of the bylaw prior to the public meeting held here today contravenes all the development guidelines. In conclusion, I ask the mayor and council to reject this zoning application, not only because high-density residential zoning does not align with the current community values and development patterns in Trout Creek, but also because of the potential to decrease property values, disrupt the order, efficiency, harmony, and uniqueness of the community, all of which are described as part of the municipality's OCP and guide to developing in Summerland. Lastly, it is disheartening and disappointing that policies and procedures and the OCP as set forth by the municipality, along with the recommendations by the APC, have been disregarded during this process. I urge you to reconsider your position moving forward and reject this building application. Thank you for your time, and thank you to all those in the community who have helped make our voices heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah.
Hello?
The next person I have on the list is Paul Monahan, and he is in person. Oh, thank you. Please come to the podium.
I wonder I've been cooking my own dinners the last 2 months. I haven't had a lot of information. My name is Paul Monahan, 6228 Miltymore Avenue, Summerland, just down the street from the hotel. First thing I'd like to do is thank everybody for coming out during these COVID times. We're not really supposed to be in meetings like this, but I suppose I might have been part of the plan for getting this passed. First thing I'd like to touch on is all businesses in the Okanagan, BC, have their good up and down times. A lot of us rely on the tourist season or whatever for us to make our money. In the off season, we got to be able to survive through it in order to have a sustainable business. We've all been pretty much hit by the COVID. I'm down 50%. The orchards are, who knows how much they've lost by now. They don't get pickers to pick their fruit. So they aren't the only people losing money at this time from the COVID issues. Okay, so if we're going to start rezoning somebody because they're starting to lose money, well, I'll be applying for a zone for a 5-plex in my place next week. I'm sure the orchardists would love to have the ALR lifted so they can put apartment buildings down there as well. It's just part of business. You have to either make your way through or you don't make your way through. Yeah. Secondly, I'd like just to find out today what the actual rules are for motels and how they operate. I know my business, I have a certain amount of retail, a certain amount of manufacturing, a certain amount of teaching area. They must have regulations because as it is right now, come September, October, they rent that place out anyways for 6 months. So I don't understand why you would need to have an apartment in there when they're doing that anyway. And consequently, what normally happens at that time of year, September, October, November, is when we start to get break-ins into our residents in the area. And I'm one who's had probably more than anybody that 6 vehicles missing there over the years during that time of year. So it does promote a little bit of problem in the crime area too, having people come in like that. So one thing I would like to know myself and find out at some point, I tried to look into it, is what are the rules for motels? Are they allowed to rent out month by month year round? If that's the case, what do they need an apartment? What do they need to zone up an apartment for? Sell the other half or whatever? I don't know what the difference is, but like I say, my business and other businesses have regulations that they have to abide by. I can't just change my business from one thing to another without the approvals of a business license and such. So that I would like to have an answer for at some point or get from someone, because I looked into it myself a little bit, and they must have regulations. Some kind of regulations, because like I say, right now, it's month to month. I just talked to someone the other day, he's there for 6 months, so they're getting their rentals as it is. Lastly, just to touch and top on what probably everybody's going to mention, my wife mentioned there, is it's a bad place for low-income housing. Like there's a liquor store and a gas station across the street here. 5 miles from the IGA or is the closest place to get food, and the other way you're going to pay tickets. So it all have to be people who have vehicles that can get to that, and it's just not a good spot. Like most of those, from my understanding, they're putting up clothing in areas like that are going into areas where people can walk or get transportation to get their food and their provisions that they need. And they're not, it would never have a chance of that down there. One, they're going uphill, they got a 5 mile walk to get up there, and I think the transportation is limited. I don't know that for sure, but I don't see buses going by all the time. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Anastasia Hernandez? Is Anastasia here? Okay, next is Wanda Rogers. Please come forward, Wanda.
Hello, I'm Wanda Rogers. I live at 6212 Willow Avenue, right across the street from the hotel. I feel that changing the motel into apartments is a bad idea. There is not enough parking spaces even for one vehicle, let alone if they have two. They also need 2 spaces for garbage and recycling. I don't think that's been looked at all. Parking should be able to fit in the motel property. The motels in Summerland, Rosedale, Pleasant View park on their property. Also the ones in particular that I checked out. The motel has been doing long-term rentals for a long time. One day I looked out my front window and there were police watching the motel. They were waiting for a search warrant to arrive. This is a couple years ago. A man was arrested for mail robbery as he found stolen mail in his room. The police drive by almost daily from the motel. About 4 weeks ago, I read in the paper that the police arrested one person when they were at the motel for a different matter. There's a lot of foot traffic and vehicle traffic, not patrons of the motel that come, stop very shortly, and then gone again. So that makes more traffic on our road. In the summer, the motel told one of the men that he could not park his truck on their property as he is leaving on. So it got put onto Willow Avenue until one of the Summerland workers had it moved. At the end of May, I needed an ambulance. The driver was very upset because it took a long time for him to be able to turn in, to take, and then again on Willow because of traffic. We are no turnaround road on Willow, and we can hardly handle the traffic that's on it now. The yard company that cuts the grass for the motel parks on the road and then makes everybody drive around them. Not safe. I feel that if you rezone half of the Willow Avenue, it'll be used as in and out apartments. On the map there, it shows that there will be people coming between the old motel and the new one. Is that been looked at for safety? There's a door coming right off the motel there. I don't think there's room for traffic to be buzzing by. So if you please check that out, it'd be great. Otherwise, we're just an accident waiting to happen. We need no parking signs on the motel side of the road, as they've chosen to have cedar trees instead of room for their parking. This has been an ongoing thing. I want room to be left so if we need an emergency vehicle, they can get down the road. And as John's talked about people in their lots of vehicles, you're talking about me. And we have room on our side. We didn't put up cedars to take away our parking spots. And now we're on our own property. The Okanagan is a tourist place, and I feel it's better to have the hotel stay as that, because they do this. When we're over all this, I hopefully we'll get back to normal. So therefore, I think it's better to leave the motel as a motel, not as apartments. Trout Creek does not have any amenities, restaurants, grocery stores, and so on, to be able to support these apartments. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanda. Is Brian Newlands here? Brian Newland? Oh, on the phone, thank you.
Brian, let me just mute, there, can you hear me? I muted the screen. Hello?
Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Newland.
Hello?
We can hear you, Mr. Newlands. You can go ahead.
You can. Okay, thank you. Mayor and Council, my name is Brian Newlands, and I have a home at 2101 Randall. I'm opposed to this application for the many reasons stated in the massive correspondence received by the district up to October 26th, which does not support the application. And importantly, for the inaccurate information regarding the application which I received presented by the applicants. Some of the inconsistencies regarding this application are in an April 29th article, it is stated that the occupancy rates have plummeted. How could anyone know that occupancy rates have plummeted for the summer months coming up prior to those months having arrived? Probably reservations were canceled, but what happened in several hotels that we stayed in during the summer was applications to stay were lost, and then when Dr. Bonnie said stay at home, they filled up again. In a text message which I received and signed by Karen Leahy, she makes some additional questionable points. Quote, just to make the point as clear as possible, this project has nothing to do with BC Housing and is no way funded by any government agency. The relevance of this statement is challenging to understand. That is, no one has stated that the government is funding the application. Firstly, why would government fund and assist the applicants? And secondly, why would anyone state that government is funding a private real estate transaction? Further, quote, the segment of the population that really requires affordable housing are young families and seniors. While this statement is accurate, seniors look for a closeness to services such as healthcare, grocery stores, recreational facilities, medical clinics, and libraries. Young families will be welcome in the Trout Creek area, I would suggest, as there are schools, beaches, tennis courts, baseball diamonds, all nearby. But one would have to ask, would young families with children really move into a studio suite? Motel visitors stay for a short period of time and thus eat out on a more than average basis. My wife and I stayed at the Summerland Motel a few times, with loading our home and ate out every evening. Further, it is stated by Karen Leahy that the Summerland campground has been rezoned to high-density residential from commercial tourism. This is not correct. The Summerland campground was zoned RMD, which is residential medium density. A notation was received by Karen Leahy advising her that the Summerland campground was rezoned RMD. She responded by saying that the Summerland campground has gone from commercial tourism to multi-occupancy residential. This again is false, as it was rezoned RMD, and I have attached established a zone chart, and there is no such zoning as multi-occupancy residential that I could find on the Summerland website. Further, she states that the point I was making is that the precedent has already been set. Rezoning of property is always viewed on an individual basis. That is case by case, not set on precedent-setting occurrences. A couple of points that I would like to suggest. If this application is approved, will the applicable DCCs be charged to the applicants, which are shown on Schedule F of my information package, as if the property in the application were, quote, a new build? Possibly a portion of the DCCs were levied when the new motel was constructed, so it would be unfair to charge the applicant for costs which they have previously paid. Also, as pointed out today, and I didn't know this until this evening, that the side setback is being asked to be reduced from 6 meters to 1.1 meters, an extremely massive reduction. Also, bicycle parking spaces, which are required should this zoning be approved, are being requested to go from 54 to 0. in Summerland's letter, a Summerland Motel's letter, rather, to Mayor and Council on October 23rd, the applicants make statements in support of their application. Rather, they choose to make unclear statements to support their application. Quote, I was subject to a manic tirade by a person who speak up, Brian, Tate Street. This tirade should not happen to anyone.
Excuse me, Mr. Newlands? Excuse me? And you may have to transfer what I'm saying, Karen. The 5 minutes is up.
Mr. Newlands, did you hear that?
I'd like to conclude one thing if I could.
Yes, please go ahead.
That I looked up and I could only find on Wikipedia, not that Wikipedia is the definite answer to all, but it reveals the following. What is the role of a counselor? A counselor's primary role is to represent the ward or division and the people who live in it. Counselors provide a bridge between the community and the council. As a local counselor, your residents will expect you to respond to their queries and investigate their concerns. Of the 53 pages sent to the district prior to October 26th, there were 2 letters of support of the application, people stating thoughts and concerns, neither stating support for or against, 4 letters, and there were 21 letters against. Karen asked that you take into account of what is actually going on here in Trout Creek. In concluding, this portion of my letter is that you view the statement at the end of her letter, wherein that you council are asked to really look what is going on in Trout Creek as the Summerland Motel requests. What is going on is that the overwhelming majority of the residents of Trout Creek are strongly voicing their application, strongly voicing their opposition towards this application. Thank you.
The next person on the list is Jim Hannon.
That should be Chris Hannon.
Chris Hannon. Please come forward, Chris Hannon.
Mayor Booth, we actually had Jim and Kim Hannon who aren't here this evening.
I'm here.
Oh, sorry. There you go. So Jim Hannon isn't here, but Kim Hannon is here.
Here, but I would
Just go.
Before you start, is there a Chris Hannon here? Chris and Kim Hannon? So the name Jim, there's not a Jim Hannon.
Very confusing.
This is very confusing. Is Jim Hannon here?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so you are the next to speak.
He doesn't want to speak.
He doesn't want, you don't want to speak.
No, we've got you people.
Okay, you are on the speakers list. That's why I called your name. Kim Hannon, thank you for your patience.
That's okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm here and I agree with the opposition.
Could you please state your civic address?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
2503 Juniper Street in Summerland. And just for the record, I've been a resident of Summerland for 20 plus years. And I do shop in Summerland. I just want everybody to know that. I have a few concerns. Summerland's a beautiful place. That's why I moved back here. And for tourist accommodation, we are really lacking. And I know that the city is trying to draw in different events to Summerland. And this is a great thing because, you know, we can have, maybe not in COVID, but COVID is not going to last forever. We're going to get through this. And we're all struggling together to get through it. We don't have good tourist accommodation. And that is something we need. And I find it crazy that we're even discussing getting rid of one of our hotels. That many rooms. We have beautiful settings. And if you start putting high density zoning in there, that's going to take away a lot of why tourists come to Summerland. They like the laid back, beautiful scenery that they get when they come here because they're on a holiday. And when they come on a holiday, they're gonna go in, they're gonna use their rooms at the motel, then they're gonna spend time at the beach or at the restaurants or shopping and taking and try to make better our community uptown as well. It's not just a matter of just coming through and leaving. They're gonna see to our wineries, do winery tours, so this affects the whole community, not just the people that live around the motel. Also, in the winter months, my kids are all grown up now, but whenever we traveled, we booked motels. Like we'd get 10 rooms and dole them out. So, I mean, if you really want to go after the business, it's there, especially here in Summerland. You want to be close to the arena or the ballparks, whatever. But we do need this. And the other thing, if we're going to talk about putting seniors down there, getting on and off that highway is terrible. I'm a senior, but I am still driving. And if they wanted to get up to Summerland to a doctor's appointment or to grocery shopping, even if they drive, that Summerland Hill can be terrible in the wintertime. So I think we need to look at a lot more than, just because it's a financial problem at this time. Maybe we're all struggling financially. And I think Summerland, if we're talking about just getting more housing for people in Summerland, because I know rentals are short, I just think that our city can do better than that for providing housing. I don't know how many of you on the board or the council have gone down, walked through the rooms that are available, and like especially all the studios. I lived in a bachelor suites at that time, probably 40 years ago. I lasted 3 months there. And I was crazy. I had to get out and get a bigger place. Not here in Summerland, but this was when I was young and on the road. But I would like you to go down and see if you yourself or one of your families, you think that that is suitable accommodation for somebody to live full time. So that's all I have to say, and I hope that it's thought through really well because I do feel that Summerland deserves better than just doing something sort of quickly and not thought through. And in the need that we need, the motels more so than the apartments of something that's too small to be really useful. And also we need 24-hour policing down there as well if we get more going on. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kim. I have Cindy Fediuk on the phone. Is she there?
Cindy Fediuk, are you on the phone?
Yes, I'm on the phone. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to, first, Cindy Fediuk. My address is 878 Lighthouse Landing in Summerland. So I maybe give a bit of a different perspective on this issue from those that have already shared some really good points tonight and in the correspondence that the council has received to date. I'm opposed to this proposal.
Excuse me, Cindy?
I moved here with my husband about 2 years ago from the Lower Mainland. And
Cindy, one moment, please.
Could you ask her to mute her YouTube?
Oh, we're just wondering if you have anything playing in the background, if you could mute that, please.
Oh, I thought I did.
If there's anyone else on the line, if you could please mute your sound. Go ahead, Cindy.
Thank you.
Okay, hopefully you can hear me fine. So my husband and I moved here about 2 years ago from the Lower Mainland. And we thought we hit the jackpot when we found Trout Creek, this gorgeous gem of a neighborhood that we were so excited to move to. And it has been that. It's lived up to our initial expectations. It's a lovely family neighborhood. We have a great school nearby, and we always comment on how lovely it is that children can actually play and walk around the neighborhood and ride their bikes and be down on the beach and kind of be unsupervised. Very different from where we came from in the Lower Mainland, where we lived through a bit of this experience that I think Summerland is now thinking about. We lived in an area where we had this type of conversion to affordable housing in a neighborhood that didn't really meet, it didn't fit with the neighborhood and how it had already been kind of set up. And we've seen a lot of the things happen, the concerns that the residents have shared with the council. I won't go into all of those, but many of the concerns that they shared and the worries they have about converting the hotel to these types of units, we have experienced. So I'm opposed to this. I would hope that we could keep this lovely Trout Creek community the way that it is and have Halloween evenings where we have 400 children coming to our doors and feeling safe to walk through the neighborhood. And really, you know, if we're going to make changes to this Trout Creek neighborhood, let's think about the services and the type of culture that we have here today. And let's try and keep that in mind in terms of whatever changes we may want to make or bring into this neighborhood. So I'll keep it short and sweet because we have some great speakers here tonight that I think have lots to say. And I want to thank you all for having me speak. And I'll just finish by saying, so I oppose this proposal for change. Thank you.
Thank you. Is Rick Lambert here? Rick Lambert or Angela Lambert? All right, Al Fisher.
Hi, my name is Al Fisher. I reside at 6200 Miltimore Avenue. I also own the 8-acre property, which is directly south of the applicant's property. My property also touches Highway 97. Thank you, Mayor Booth, for letting me talk about this. I was super busy when I heard about this application, so I had my lawyer in Kelowna look at the thing. And even my concerns, I think he sent me a letter outlining some of the concerns. And I noticed in Mr. Leahy's presentation tonight, he did alleviate some of my concerns with respect to kitchens and things. That's good. My only comment is that I just don't think this rezoning apps are in room. This hotel was not built or intended as an apartment building, and it just doesn't fit into this area appropriately. The main thing I've got is that my commercial entrance to my property is at the end of Willow Avenue, and his new entrance and exit to his property is also at the end of Willow Avenue. And my gate, for instance, is about 18 feet from his entrance. It's quite tight. So I can see, and Willow also is a very narrow street. There's no parking on this side, parking for the residents on that side. It's a tight street. And I can just see there's going to be some problems coming up, congestion-wise. I've been operating a nursery and orchard business out there for 35 years. And during busy times, I've got semis going down that street, tractors, etc. And this property doesn't look like it, but it's also one of the last undeveloped agritourism sites in Summerland. It's 8 acres on the corner of the highway, and my kids and I are trying to develop it. So, number one, I want those hotel units there so that they can go highway street. But number two, I can see it with 25 to 60 neighbors right at the choke point of my property. I can see this going to be definitely an issue at certain times of the year. I'm just concerned about it. That's my big deal, is the egress, the access to it. So I'm not here to talk all about the lack of amenities, I think that's pretty obvious. But in conclusion, I just think it's, the property he's got is not properly designed for this proposal. I don't think the rezoning that proposed is contextual with that neighborhood. And basically, I'm opposed. That's my comments.
Thank you, Alan. Larry Lacasse?
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have quite a number of things I thought I would say, and a lot of them have been said already. My name is Larry Lacasse, 2117 Thornburg Street, so across the highway. I've had issues with some of the clientele at the motel, and that will have maybe a positive aspect to a change. However, that's one of the few benefits. Relative to what I see, it's having had my property for 30 years and more, I've seen the dissolution of a lot of agricultural land, splitting it up into residential. And I don't know if this is a step along that line of losing more and more agricultural land. So I do have a problem with that. On the flip side, I see that the building is already in place, but there's issues with the access, number of people, size of units, and a few people have already mentioned that the size of the units for long-time stays, if they're apartments, they could drive some people insane. And also the fact that people move in to start with their own personal plans, being single or single parent with a child, but eventually they get into a relationship and all of a sudden everything's a little too much for a smaller unit. So that could cause a lot of transition of who might rent on a long-term basis. Relative to some of the comments about the police sitting and watching a unit, that might have been relative to one of the many thefts I had at my property 2 winters ago. And I was having to see the RCMP every second or third day, and they were at my property every twice a week, going through things with me. Now, that is a hard thing to say where these people are coming from. However, it was through the winter months. And I tracked a number of people over to the motel. And I chased people on foot, I chased people in my vehicle. And again, that's not the owner's problem, other than with the winter rentals, which are the longer term, where it's furnished. Some of the clientele that come in, they're just this certain type of people who are overwintering in Summerland. Now, having units available where they have to furnish their own unit, that may dissuade some of those people from using that as a location for themselves. And I'm not saying that all of the people I had a problem with were there, but there were a number of occasions where I could see some of my belongings in the back windows of cars and things. And that was a little hard to take with the RCMP, unable to do a lot. Relative to the request of what's put before you, I'm really on the fence with that. I can see benefits to me. I see a negative side to it as well. And part of it comes back to the fact that Trout Creek, when I first bought, was a rural flavor with a lot of agriculture, and I'm seeing that changing. And that to me is a slippery slope to be going down, including the fact even where they planted the cherries, they removed basically most of the topsoil. And I was told that they would be respreading the topsoil afterwards, and that never happened. So that's another big chunk of land that maybe in 5 or 10 years the cherry crop dies, and They feign the fact that, oh, well, we can't make it viable, so let's turn that into another subdivision. I don't know what the big scheme of future planning that is, but every time I turn around, there are things happening with a negative aspect to the agricultural and rural flavor of Trout Creek. So as far as being a place for people to be able to visit Trout Creek in the summertime, I've actually directed a lot of people over to the motel when they've stopped asking for directions or information. So I've always thought it was a good place for tourists. And we are losing a lot of available camping and other accommodation styles available in Summerland. And Peachland is no different. And I don't know how the council can attempt to turn that back and regenerate more availability. I don't know if they have to go back up by the train station and develop campgrounds or something, but the big thing is that we're losing accommodation for tourists. And I see that as a negative thing in the future. And pretty much all the other things I had to say have been said, so thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Larry. And the last person I have on the list tonight is Christopher Hannon.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Christopher Hannon. I live at 2117 Tate Street. It's the first house behind the motel in Trout Creek. I've never met the owners of the motel before. I've never had any interaction, positive or negative. I think of myself as a relatively good neighbor. If someone has a problem with anything I'm doing, I typically try to solve the problem. I try to be polite and stay out of people's business. I've lived in long-term suites in motels before. I've done it. I was traded from this hockey team that used to be here in Summerland when I was a teenager, and I lived in a motel where I ended up for over 6 months. Based on my firsthand experience with that, I know that it's no place to live. We do have a problem with housing in this province, in this country. I myself am a landlord of a low-income family. I know that there's a need for it, and I know that it's challenging. The price points are ridiculous. Young people are trying to pay rent that would typically be more than the landlord's mortgage. This is a huge problem. However, I believe that takes a system to solve. I appreciate that this is a potential option. I just don't believe that this location in this neighborhood is appropriate. Several speakers have already made points about parking and things like that and access, and there's an argument for and against everything. I just think that my experience living in one of these units in a different motel is pretty valid in this case. I know what it's like. It's very difficult to do anything. I had a kitchenette. I had the whole thing, and it's an expensive way to live, regardless where you are. I've got my wife and I, we've got a baby on the way. We're really lucky in that neighborhood. It's really blossoming with young families and things like that. So I was a little disappointed when I heard that, it was going to be an adults only requirement. I don't know if it sounds like that may change, but the way that this neighborhood is evolving is it's a family neighborhood now. And it's something that we're all very excited about. We've got one of the most ethnically diverse neighborhoods, I think, in all of Summerland, really. My wife's from Mexico. The folks down the street are They're from the United States. We've got people from Portugal up the road and so on and so forth. It's fantastic. It's a beautiful family community. Unfortunately, I just don't think that this location is appropriate to achieve this. I understand hard times with the pandemic we're in. I'm a small business owner myself. It's not easy. Hopefully, if things continue, we can all get through this. I don't wish financial hardship on anyone. But I can't support this, and my wife, she also cannot support this. So thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have you received any other registrants to speak?
We haven't, Your Mayor, but we would like to just suggest that if anybody does want to speak, that we ask the gallery to just open it up.
Yeah, okay. Is there anybody here that has not had the chance to speak that would like to come to the podium to address this public hearing? Please come forward.
Hi there, my name is Mark Lavassier. I live at 1708 Harding Street. My parents moved here back in 1976. We lived in the residence at 1708 Harding Street during that time. I'm just going to touch on a few points that really I don't think have really been brought up. He's already allowing the temporary residents in there for 6 months terms already. So that's already been established. And I understand with the COVID incident, we're all trying to survive and deal with that. There's a lot of temporary exceptions that can be made for that. But one of the things that really I'm worried about is the allowing of the adults and the rental tenancy that becomes involved. I don't know if the owner has done his due diligence to determine what actually will all be involved once you start into the rental market. The horror stories are out there. And my concern is the fact is that once the rental person gets in, they're in. Trying to get them out is a very difficult process. There's a long-term process that's involved. There's the Rental Tenancy Act, there's short-term, there's a tribunal that goes through it and all that stuff. It's what I've managed to see over my last 20 years working. Regarding the adults only, I'm not too sure if there's any precedents or anything with that, how you can regulate that with regards to policy, regulations, how that can all be set up. When a lot of renters do come in, and I'm sure there's some that are back here, have already said they're already landlords, the fact is, when they present themselves as renters the first time, they usually put on a very good facade. It's the due diligence of the owner, the renter, the owner of the property, to make sure that they do their due diligence to research the person. A lot of times there's a lot of facade that goes into that. And what happens is then you end up with a very select group of people that end up in these areas and the low income. The other safety concern that gets me is the close proximity to the highway. As you all know, it's a 70-kilometer zone through there. I can tell you on any given day, you're not going to see a majority of vehicles doing 70 kilometers an hour. There's only one way across the highway, and that's through a governed sidewalk that's through the municipality there on the highway there. It's a control. Step back. That's the other concern is off the highway and entering the highway is a big safety concern. If there's an improved access, then that's a possibility. On the plus side is the fact is my family has used that motel many times for events that we've had, and it's a very plus that we do need that. The other side of it is the fact is I've also seen positive aspects when certain groups, organizations actually control this with regards to communities from maybe the mental health society, brain injury societies, things like that, where they're regulated under a very strict contract, not under the rental tenancy agreement, then those are done very well. I've seen that, the positive aspect of it. But the negative aspect, if you're just going in for long-term rentals, which you already have that there already, it's very difficult to get them out once the problem starts arising. Basically, I understand the difficulties that are this. We do need that sort of thing, but this is not the area for it. I'm opposed to it. I think at the end of the day, we're already seeing the density growth from I've already submitted the letter showing before when we lived here, you need a certain size property because of septic. Now we have sewer. Where you put 3 homes now, you can only put 1 before. So we're already seeing that growth there. With apartments and going into that housing complex proves to be a very, very difficult time. It's already been expressed before by a lot of the amount of the RCMP and the clientele that this sort of building can produce. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Would anybody else like to come to the podium to speak? Okay, for those that have already spoken once, is there anyone that would like to come and speak another time? Mr. Lathy?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There appears to be a perception that people who live in studio apartments or what's termed affordable living are bad. That's not my experience. And secondly, somebody raised the issue about rules and regulations regarding motels. Well, the motel comes under the Motel Keepers Act. Apartments come under the Tenancy Act. And under the Motel Keepers Act, it is very, very difficult to deny people any service. So we do our level best to sift and sort and all the rest of it. But as the gentleman just said, everybody puts on a nice persona when they want to get into the property. Regarding apartments, it is, in my opinion, because we have rented apartments in Vancouver, we own apartments, and it is much easier. It's a far more long-winded process when somebody applies to come in, and they have to, you are then doing your due diligence, which you can't do in 10 minutes when they come off the road asking for someone to stay in a motel. So I hope people are not getting the wrong end of the stick. The apartments are not the motel. They're totally different. The motel will be the motel, the apartments will be the apartments. I think the second thing is regarding crime. Well, we are not in favor of crime, I can assure you. And the decline of society is not the fault of the Summerland Motel. And I would remind them that every summer, 10 cities appear in the orchards around about as farmers bringing young people to harvest crops. And the other thing that has changed fairly recently is that we are on Highway 97, which is the main north-south conduit of this valley. And then 20 miles down the road, there's a jail. And they seem to be letting more people out than they're taking in. Now, part of that is COVID, but there is a lot of transient people. Because we are actually on the highway, we do see them. And so I have to say to you that whatever the perception, not that many people come from the motel. And we actually cooperate fully with the local detachment of the RCMP. And they pay us visits, as they do to all motels in town, when they're looking for people. And they go through our register and they see if they're there. And I'm glad to say that they very kindly, frequently fly the flag by driving through our motel car park when they have the time, which I believe is a strong deterrent to people with criminal intent and should be of a comfort, not concern to the residents of the immediate neighborhood. And we do work closely with the RCMP. So, in conclusion, people have their own opinions. I respect them and all the rest of it. But at the end of the day, I think that what we are proposing will actually be a big benefit. And I think that there is a great shortage of rental properties. And I think it will attract younger people, couples, and downsizing seniors. And, the fact of the matter is, if you 2 or 3 years in, you have 3 kids, then obviously you're going to look for a bigger apartment. You're not going to stay there. One of the good things about being in Tribe Creek, actually, is there's plenty of space to get out. There's plenty to do in Tribe Creek. You can go swimming, you can go boarding, wherever you want. So I would again emphasize that just because they're affordable, they're only affordable because of their size. They are not low-cost subsidized or supported welfare housing units, as has been put about. So in my closing statement, I would commend what you're doing today and would ask you to fully support it. Thank you very much.
Please don't go away. Is there anyone on council that have any other questions of Mr. Leahy? Councillor Patton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Leahy, I see that Cal Mickeljohn, your architect, is in the gallery. Would you mind if I ask him a couple questions?
Please.
Hi, Cal.
Hello.
Good to see you.
Hello.
I do have a question. This was brought up by Councillor Holmes in regards to the size of the units. One of the things that was brought up by Councillor Holmes was, is there an opportunity to increase the size of some of the studio units? In your professional opinion, with the fire separation in between the units and being sprinkler building, is that a deterrent or can that be done?
I can imagine that if the owner wanted to expand the size of his units, we could do that. I don't think there was any deterrent, or it's not impossible. You'd have to double check some issues regarding separations, but it could be done, certainly. Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Mr. Carlson, is there a question for Mr. Leahy?
It is, yes.
And I have a couple of questions for you as well, so thank you. Get your exercise today.
Thank you for bringing this forward. I actually have 2 questions. The first one is, was your application made once COVID hit before the summer? And my other question is, if you were to succeed and subdivide and have half apartments and half a motel, would the motel half still be available for long-term rental in the wintertime?
Firstly, we have thought about this before COVID. And the reason I'll give you is we have been at that motel for a long time. And we have, like everybody else, gone through a lot of difficulties. The first one probably started with the financial crisis. Then we've had 2 seasons of fire. We've had flood. We've had technological change in our industry, whereby people now are going through things like Expedia and Booking.com and so on. We've had Airbnb. So we've taken massive hits. COVID was, I suppose, the straw that broke the camel's back. And secondly, I would say about, Summerland needs tourist accommodation. 80% of our clientele come from Alberta. And if you read the paper, the Alberta economy is not doing good. I think Calgary is losing jobs at a rate of knots. And if you believe the politicians, no disrespect, that our route out of this crisis is going to be green. So much of the Alberta economy is redundant. Now, where did these other people come from who are going to fill all this stuff up? I don't know. And there's also plans for a setup for another motel. So if demand does rise, then it's going to be profitable for that kind of business. I'm sorry,
And my second question was, if you are successful and you have apartments, would the rest of your motel operations still be long-term winter rentals as well? Or short-term winter rentals?
Short-term rentals. You always get short-term winter rentals. But mostly people have a reason to be here. There's been a lot of building in Summerland. And over the last 2 winter seasons, we've had a lot of tradespeople who come in for 2 or 3 months to do a job and go back to their area. So in that respect, flexibility of the motel would probably suit those kind of people. But as far as the residents are concerned.
Thank you.
I'm sure that it's in the package. Can you remind us how many units actually remain in the motel? How many units that you'll be? 21?
29.
29. Thank you. And this again might be a question for Cal. What is the square footage of the studios that you're envisioning at this point?
I don't know off the top of my head, I'm afraid.
Sorry, you don't have that information? Okay. That's fine. And then I just wanted to ask you, based on the comments made earlier tonight by somebody that was not in favor of your proposal, do you care to comment about the challenges of managing long-term rentals? There was a fair number of statements made and perhaps some assumptions made there, and I was just wondering if you cared to comment about those.
I think because they are long-term, a lot of things will be actually written down in the lease, so it has some legal backing. And if I could just do a comparison, in the motel we have signs everywhere. You know, don't walk on the grass, keep it going, and leave. All that, nobody takes it. And I can holler at them till I'm moving. Actually, with a longer term thing, you have probably a stronger relationship because these people are here today and not tomorrow, whereas in an apartment they're not. So you can actually enforce rules and regulations. And I think so. Out of all the stuff is going up front, then I think there's a far better understanding.
And if I could also ask you, when you speak about long-term rentals, is this a lease arrangement? And so it would be year lease, year to year? Good, thank you. So those are the questions I had. Anybody else have questions of John or maybe Mr. Meiklejohn? Okay, thank you, John. And I'll ask for a third and final time if there's anyone in the gallery that would like to come forward and speak to this, even if it's their first time or second time. Wanda?
I've lived down in Trout Creek and I've been through motel with, I believe, 3 or 4 different buyers. And it seems like since John's bought it, he's tried to push his boundaries out all sides. And he's, the highway department, he has trees and shrubbery there. On our side, he has the cedars. On the other side, there's cedars and whatever. His property drains across the road on Tate. That causes a hole there that causes everybody to go around. I really feel he's got no feeling for his neighbors at all. We never get a good morning, hi, how are you doing? All we hear is the bad stuff. And I'm nervous, I'm sorry. I feel for you for your business. There was, since we lived there, the schools, the teams, or whatever, there was busloads coming in. And it seems like after you took over a body, it's just dwindled down to nothing. Like maybe there's another reason other than COVID that's really the bottom line here. I'm really against it being changed. Thank you.
Thank you. Al?
I just have one more comment regarding the ALR versus a high density development. Oh, sorry. I said one more comment about having an ALR property next to a high density development. I do have the right to farm out right behind me. So I can see potentially, there could be problems with noise, spray drift, dust, dirt, etc. Like I actively farm vegetables about 12 feet from that fence. And in the spring, there's lots of dust and spray and stuff like that. So I can see there could be a possible situation where things might not work so well sometimes. There could be some confrontation. Just a comment. Because people are moving into apartments, city dwelling types, not urban types necessarily. Anybody have some problems with the farming aspects? Let's just let it go. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So I'm going to declare the first public hearing closed, and we'll go on to the second one now. And that is shown as 4.1 on our agenda, bylaw number 2020-022, zoning bylaw amendment for 16618 Logie Road. And it looks like Ariane's presenting? Ariane, thank you. Okay, whenever you're ready.
We're just waiting for it to load. So an application was received from the owner of 16618 Logie Road requesting a site-specific text amendment to the zoning bylaw to allow a single detached house as a principal use, as well as 2 principal dwelling units on their property so that they can build a garage. So this property is unique in that its OCP future land use designation is medium density residential, and its zoned RMH, which is intended to accommodate manufactured housing communities. The surrounding pattern of development is largely agricultural, with the exception of the adjacent manufactured housing community, as well as some single detached houses to the north. So this application is best understood by placing it within a historical context. The property was originally part of what is now the Summerland Mobile Home Park on Stewart Street, but was subdivided from the parent parcel in 1969. Despite its land use designation, records from the file indicate that the property was never intended to be used as a mobile home park. So for instance, some documents in the file note that this property was to be used by the owner of the mobile home park as their principal dwelling, and that they either planned on building a single detached house or a mobile home. And additionally, the size of the property isn't conducive to a manufactured housing community. So the concern at this time is that the only permitted principal use within the RMH zone is manufactured housing type 1 or 2. Although the single detached house is being used as a principal use, it's non-conforming. Any alteration to that house, including accessory uses associated with it, would increase its non-conformity and must be brought into compliance. This is particularly relevant for this application as the owner would like to build a garage, which you can see highlighted on those photos there, and the yellow circles depict the location of where they're proposing to build it. But they can only do this if the existing house is a legitimate use. So the intent of this application is to bring the non-conforming single detached house into compliance through a site-specific text amendment to the zoning bylaw to make the existing house a principal use and to permit 2 dwellings on the property. As part of this review process, staff considered several options that would bring this house into compliance, including an OCP amendment to the future land use designation, a zoning bylaw amendment to reflect the low density and residential use. However, there is not a zone or a land use that adequately addresses this property, and as such, staff are recommending a site-specific text amendment at this time. Only under exceptional circumstances would staff recommend having 2 principal dwellings per lot. Given that both dwellings have existed for decades, staff see no harm in allowing this use to continue by bringing the single detached house into compliance to facilitate the construction of a garage. Should council not approve the site-specific text amendment, the single detached house could continue to exist as a non-conforming use, but no additions could take place that would further increase its non-conformity. Thank you.
Thank you, Ariane. Okay, this is the second public hearing. Anything, any updates at all on people that might want to speak? No? And is there the applicant or a representative in the gallery? Yes? Would you like to speak to this or no? I'm sorry, I can't hear you when the fan is on.
No, Madam Mayor, I believe that Erin has done a good job of explaining the situation.
Oh, it's Harlan there. Now I can see you. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I guess there's nobody who wants to speak to this, so I will declare this second public hearing closed. And we'll go on to the third one. 5.1, bylaw number 2020-024, official community plan amendment.
Thank you.
Brad, thank you.
We're just loading up the PowerPoint here.
Okay.
Okay. So if council remembers, we did have a presentation of this already. CEO has already done first and second, so I'll just try to go quickly through it. What we're proposing to do is to provide some flexibility to the official community plan for areas identified as hazardous within our hillside development permit area. Specifically those areas identified as having slopes greater than 30% of slope, natural grade slope. So currently, within the official community plan, we have guidelines that state that all development is restricted within slopes that are greater than 30% of natural grade. And so therefore, if a development proposal was to come forward, it would require a site-specific amendment to the official community plan to allow for that parcel to get developed. And even this may be the case in how we interpret the official community plan, even for a small portion of a lot being over the 30% mark. Next slide. So just for illustration purposes, this GIS map here shows all areas identified in the district of Summerland that are over 30%, which identifies the black area in this topography map. As you can see, of course, everyone knows that we do have a lot of hillside areas within the district, which is common in the Okanagan Valley, where there is development pressure, given that it's outside, that often these areas are outside the AMR. So what we're proposing in terms of amendment is instead of an outright prohibition of all areas greater than 30%, that we evaluate a parcel on a case-by-case basis through the completion of a detailed geotechnical assessment that's professionally completed by a geotechnical engineer to determine if there is the feasibility of development on the site through geotechnical means. We also have some other guidelines that we're proposing to try to restrict the potential impact of development within a high slope area, such as site grading within the hillside area to be limited only to the specific development footprint of a parcel, and not completely, trying to flatten out the entire parcel from property line to property line. And similarly, as well, we're restricting any flat yards to be developed within these parcels, and that visually impact assessment be prepared if there are visual concerns with use of large retaining walls, for example. slide. So just some examples of areas where, having talked about, and I believe in the past, for development that are restricted through the 30% rule. This is a large lot that's located in the south area of the district. As you can see from the middle of the map there, all the black areas that are identified that are over 30%, which would restrict the development of this parcel without, again, an official community plan amendment. We do want to mention too that most of these areas are also layered on top with an environmentally sensitive development permit area and also potentially a wildfire interface area. So there's going to be the need for a comprehensive review of the suitability of the land for development from those lenses as well, as at the same time as we're looking at the hazardous areas of the site through this geotechnical investigation. As well, for infill properties, there's a few properties in town that have never been developed within subdivided areas already. This is a more medium density, high density type of location within Summerland that as well could be restricted by the 30% rule, although there has been development to the south and to the west of this immediate property. Next slide. And just even more drastically, within a developed lot within a single family area, there has been a restriction of this one lot for development, although the neighboring lots haven't been developed in years past. So we do want to create some consistency as well of our interpretation of the OCP guidelines moving forward. So we presented this to the advisory committees, the development process improvement committee. Their comments was fully supportive of the amendments. They believe that starting off the discussion with development of a parcel instead of outright prohibition will be a healthier discussion with developers rather than saying no to that. And then they also identify that there is already significant other DPs that will be required usually in these areas. Advisory Planning Commission suggested that we should do a more thorough review of the hillside development guidelines, which staff also has recognized the need to complete. Unfortunately, that wasn't done through this review, but it's something that perhaps needs to be looked at in the future. And there was a question of staff whether other communities do the similar type of approach to high slope hazard areas, and yes, looking at the city of Penticton and our US as well, they do allow development in greater than 30% slopes through geotechnical investigation. Oh, and then finally, just the change from the first and second reading, it's been pointed out to us that there's some numbering changes that are associated with our amending bylaw. So we are proposing at the third reading, which we'll discuss, an amended bylaw that rectifies those numbering issues, and that third reading we read as amended.
Councillor Barco, do you have a question?
Should we ask questions of staff now or when we get
No.
into the meeting?
When we get into the
Okay.
meeting. Yeah, thank you. Tracy back there. I guess there's nobody here to speak to this one. I'll just make that assumption and declare this public hearing closed. And we'll get on to the next one. I got my agendas mixed up here. Okay, so that would be bylaw number 2020-025, zoning bylaw amendment for administrative and land use.
Okay, it's coming up. Just
Okay.
Okay, thank you. The intent of this amendment bylaw is to do an administrative update to the zoning bylaw, which has been an area of need, I think, for a number of years for the district. So I'll just get into the details moving forward. So there's a number of reasons why we wanted to go through an administrative update, streamline the development process. We've identified a number of historical inconsistencies within the bylaw, and which happens over time as you do a number of amendments since this bylaw was originally adopted. In June of this year, which I'll get into, we completed a variance analysis of the amount of development variance permits that were being brought forward to council, which identified that there had, for the community size of Summerland, that we have been providing a lot of variances forward to council, which indicates that there may be issues with the zoning bylaw. At the staff level, we have our own interpretation concerns, which we're hoping to rectify through additional definitions within the bylaw, which we're including as part of this amendment. Consistency is another area of concern, again, throughout the bylaw. We've had specific complaints from customers too about something that doesn't fit with other guidelines and other plans that we have. And then as well, just moving forward, we want to have a semi-annual review of the zoning bylaw moving forward so that we ensure that we're keeping the document up to date. So you can't see too well, but this was our development variance permit analysis that was completed in June. We looked at variances that the district issued over the last 3 years, since 2017 to 2020, to identify where we may have perhaps issues within our zoning bylaw if we have the same variance coming forward. And setbacks is a high one, which is to be expected, but retaining wall was another one that was significant, and as well as maximum lot coverage. So those are areas that we're hoping to address with these amendments. Starting with the retaining walls, staff are recommending that we propose to increase the maximum height from 1.2 meters to 2 meters to reduce the amount of variances coming forward to council. And as